On the left side of your screen is your typical photo. On the right side is the piece of work I want to help you create today. Same time of day, same exact location, and even the same camera body. The only real difference between these two frames is that I turned off the overhead light and moved my subject exactly 3 centimeters. Please stop going out to buy new lenses. That will never cure your sense of flat mediocrity. Today we are not going to talk about camera specifications, and we are not going to look at menus. We are only going to talk about the supreme power of light. I am Mr. Simple, and welcome back to my mental studio. Today, we are going to use the absolute simplest mindsets to transform your completely ordinary environment into a deeply cinematic private studio space. The biggest reason your photographs consistently feel cheap is because you treat your environment as something fixed and permanent. You walk into a room, you see light, and you immediately click the shutter button. You are essentially allowing the chaotic environment to dictate your creative result. But here is the ultimate secret of visual art. Photography is never about recording what you see with your eyes. It is about deliberately choosing what the viewer gets to see. In a normal, everyday environment, light is incredibly chaotic. It is bouncing around everywhere, hitting your subject from the wrong angles, and creating severe visual distractions. Your true job as an artist is not to fix the environment. Your job is to filter it. Let us begin with mindset number 1. You must find the absolute direction of the light. The most common mistake I see every day happens when people shoot under standard overhead lighting. Think about the terrible fluorescent tubes in an office, or the ugly ceiling lamp in your living room. That is a recipe for absolute visual disaster. Overhead light casts deep, dark, ugly shadows under the eyes, the nose, and the chin. It flattens the environment and removes all three-dimensional depth from the human face. You need to stop looking at the subject and start looking directly at the light source. Find where the strongest light is coming from, and position your subject so that the light hits them entirely from the side. This is known as side lighting. It creates a beautiful, subtle transition from light to shadow across the face or the object. This transition is what adds depth, dimension, and physical texture. This simple shift in positioning is the foundation of every professional portrait you have ever admired in your life. Imagine you are sitting in a local coffee shop. Most people will instinctively sit facing the window, putting the window light directly behind the camera lens. This flat lighting makes the subject look entirely two-dimensional, like a cheap cardboard cutout. Now simply ask your subject to move 45 degrees to the side. Suddenly, the light grazes the side of their face. It beautifully sculpts their jawline, brings out the bright catchlights in their eyes, separates them from the busy background, and adds instant cinematic drama. You did not change your camera body. You did not buy an expensive flash system. You simply moved your feet. Photography is the physical art of moving your body until the light does exactly what you want it to do. Most people are simply too lazy to move, and that is exactly why their photos look like random snapshots instead of intentional photographs. This brings us directly to mindset number 2. You must turn your ordinary window into a professional studio softbox. If you are shooting indoors, you already possess the absolute best, most natural lighting tool in the entire world. However, most people use it completely wrong. They place their subject directly in the harsh, direct sunlight pouring through the glass. This creates extreme, unmanageable contrast that completely blows out the highlights and buries the shadows in pure blackness. Instead, you need to step back. Position your subject 1 or 2 meters away from the window and let the light wrap around them naturally. If the sunlight is still too harsh, you can partially close a thin white curtain. This acts as a massive diffuser. You are looking for soft, diffused light that creates a gentle, gradual fall-off into the shadow side. This specific quality of light creates that expensive, professional glow that you usually only see in high-end fashion magazines. Think deeply about the quality of the light you are using. Hard light is like a sharp knife. It reveals every single flaw, every wrinkle, and creates harsh, distracting edges. Soft light, on the other hand, is like a soft blanket. It smooths out the skin, hides imperfections, and creates an immediate sense of comfort and luxury. When you shoot near a large window, you are essentially creating a giant light source. The fundamental rule of lighting physics is that the larger the light source is relative to your subject, the softer the light will be. This is exactly why a large window is vastly superior to a small, bright light bulb on your ceiling. It is large, it is highly directional, and best of all, it is completely free. Stop searching the internet for expensive artificial lamps and start observing the natural windows in your daily life. Every window is an invitation to create something timeless. Mindset number 3 is perhaps the most difficult for beginners to grasp. Light is defined entirely by shadow. Many amateur photographers are terrified of the dark parts of their image, so they try to light everything up evenly. This is a fatal mistake. When you illuminate everything in the frame, you completely lose the visual story. To create a cinematic, high-end look, you must be brave enough to leave significant parts of your image in deep shadow. This technique is called subtractive lighting. You can use a dark wall, a piece of black cardboard, a dark piece of clothing, or simply position your own body to block out ambient light that is hitting areas you do not want to highlight. When you reduce the amount of light in the room, you drastically increase the emotional meaning of the image. You are actively guiding the viewer's eye exactly where it needs to go. By hiding things in shadow, you are not losing visual information. You are gaining dramatic impact. Consider the classic film look that we all love. What exactly makes it feel so special and cinematic? It is not just the expensive cameras or the complicated color grading templates. It is the contrast. It is the deep, rich, heavy blacks and highly intentional highlights. In your daily life, you should actively look for ways to create negative space. If you are shooting a product or a still life, move the object away from the bright center of the room and place it into a slightly darker corner. Then, use a small narrow sliver of light from a cracked door or a window to illuminate only one side of the object. This technique forces the viewer to focus entirely on the subject. It completely hides the messy, distracting details of your ordinary room and elevates the elegance of your subject. You are using the darkness to clean your frame. It is the ultimate tool for minimalism. Now, let us put all of these concepts together into a practical workflow. Think about that messy corner in your room where you usually sit. Move your subject to the side of the nearby window. Cut the ambient light on the shadow side using a dark object to create a rich contrast. Suddenly, that boring, everyday corner becomes a professional studio environment. It is never about the room itself. It is always about a conscious decision you made to control and shape the light. Many beginners falsely believe that they need a perfect, aesthetically pleasing background to take a beautiful photo. But if you control the light correctly, the background can simply disappear into the darkness. By setting your exposure for the brightest part of the subject and letting the background fall into shadow, you instantly remove the clutter. You remove the distractions. You leave only the pure essence of your subject. This is what we call highly intentional photography. The critical shift from an amateur to a professional happens the exact moment you realize that your gear is not the protagonist of your art. The light is the protagonist. You are the director. The light is your lead actor, and the environment is just the stage. A truly good director can create an absolute masterpiece in a messy basement if they know exactly how to work with the shadows. Long before digital cameras ever existed, The great master painters like Rembrandt and Caravaggio understood these exact principles better than anyone alive today. They utilized a brilliant technique called Chiaroscuro, which is the use of strong, dramatic contrast between light and dark to achieve a profound sense of volume and three-dimensional modeling. They did not have modern flashbulbs or high-end sensors. They only had a flickering candle, a single window, and an absolutely incredible ability to observe the world around them. They did not need to illuminate the entire room to capture the beautiful essence of a human being. They knew exactly how much shadow was needed to define the face. You are the modern equivalent of those great painters. Your camera is your brush, and your room is your grand studio. If you found this simple approach to photography useful, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. We are building a strong community here for those who believe that greatness is never about having more, but about doing less with much more intention. In the comment section below, I want you to try this specific exercise. Take a photo in a common, everyday place using only directional side lighting and tell me exactly how it changed your perspective on your environment. I will see you in the next video, and remember, the most beautiful light is not the one that reveals everything, but the one that reveals exactly what matters. Peace.